Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to make a claim so large that the rational mind will immediately recoil from it. A claim that sounds on its surface like the kind of thing people say when they are selling something, or comforting someone, or reaching for words bigger than they can support. But I do not make it loosely. I make it with the full weight of what I know to be true. If you can think it, you can have it. Not some of it, not the modest, reasonable portion of it that your circumstances would seem to permit. All of it, the whole of whatever you are capable of, genuinely conceiving. And I want you to notice your own reaction to that statement. Because somewhere in you, even now, a voice is already objecting. That cannot be true. There are things I think about that I will never have. There are dreams that are simply beyond me. There are desires that belong to other people, people with advantages I do not have, in circumstances I was not born into. That voice feels like wisdom. It feels like the mature, grounded, realistic acknowledgement of life's hard limits. But tonight I am going to show you that the voice is wrong, not gently wrong, not partially wrong, fundamentally, completely, demonstrably wrong. And I am going to show you why the ability to think something is not a coincidence, not an accident, not a cruel taunt from a universe that lets you imagine what you cannot have. It is an invitation. It is, in the deepest sense, a promise. The very fact that you can conceive of it is the proof that it belongs to you. Let us begin at the foundation, because everything tonight rests on a single understanding about what a thought actually is. Most people believe that thoughts are reflections, that the mind is a kind of mirror, passively registering the world as it already exists. You see a tree, you think tree. You experience your circumstances, and your thoughts simply report on them. In this view, thought comes after reality. Reality is the cause, and thought is the effect, a kind of internal commentary running alongside a world that exists independently of it. And if that were true, then the objecting voice would be right. Your thoughts about a grander life would be mere fantasy, idle commentary on a reality that has already been decided without your input, wishful noise, the mind amusing itself with pictures of things it cannot reach. But it is not true. It is the precise reversal of the truth. Thought is not the reflection of reality. Thought is the substance of reality. It is not the commentary that comes after the world is made. It is the material out of which the world is made. Everything, every object, every circumstance, every condition that has ever existed in the human world began as a thought before it became a thing. The thought is the cause. The thing is the effect. The inner conception always precedes the outer manifestation. In every single case, without one exception in the entire history of human creation. Look around you, wherever you are sitting right now. Every single manufactured thing in your field of vision existed first as a thought in someone's mind. The chair, the lamp, the building, the device you are listening on, none of it leapt into existence from nothing. Each one was first conceived, thought into being in the invisible realm of mind, before it was ever built in the visible realm of matter. And what is true of objects is true of circumstances, true of relationships, true of wealth, of health, of the entire architecture of a human life. Every condition you have ever experienced was first a thought, yours or someone's, held with enough consistency and enough feeling that it crossed the bridge from the inner world into the outer one. So when you think of the life you desire, you are not engaging in idle fantasy. You are doing the first and most essential act of all creation. You are conceiving. You are working in the very substance from which all reality is fashioned. The thought is not separate from the having. The thought is the beginning of the having. Now I want to address the objection directly, because it deserves a real answer and not a dismissal. The objection says, but I can think of things that are clearly impossible. I can think of flying by flapping my arms. I can think of being in two places at once. Surely the ability to think something does not mean I can have it. This is a fair challenge, and the answer reveals something profound about the nature of genuine thought. There is a difference between idly picturing something and genuinely thinking it, genuinely conceiving it as a reality you could inhabit. You can form a mental cartoon of flapping your arms and rising into the air, but can you actually conceive it? Can you assume it as real, feel the wind, feel the genuine bodily reality of it, inhabit it as a fact? You cannot. Something in you knows it is not a real conception. It is a picture, not a possibility. The deeper mind will not accept it, will not let you genuinely feel it as true, because it does not belong to the order of things you are actually capable of being. But the life you desire, the wealth, the love, the health, the meaningful work, the freedom, notice that you can genuinely conceive these. You can feel them as real. You can inhabit them in imagination, and something in you accepts them, recognizes them, responds to them as belonging to the realm of the genuinely possible. That recognition is not random. The desires that you can genuinely conceive, that you can feel as real, inhabit as possible, assume as fact, are precisely the ones that belong to you. The capacity to truly conceive a thing is itself the signal that the thing is within your reach. Nature does not waste genuine conception on the genuinely impossible. The deeper intelligence within you does not let you authentically feel the reality of what you cannot have. So the test is not whether you can form a picture. It is whether you can genuinely conceive, whether you can inhabit the thing as real and feel something in you say, yes, this is mine. And almost everything you actually desire passes that test, which means almost everything you actually desire is already in the deepest sense yours, waiting only for you to do the work of bringing it across. I want to go deeper now, because there is a dimension to this that most people never reach, and it is where the real power of this understanding lives. The desires that rise in you, the genuine ones, the ones that return again and again, the ones that will not leave you alone no matter how many times you try to talk yourself out of them. These are not arbitrary. Most people treat their desires as a kind of problem, a source of frustration, a list of things they do not have, generating a constant low ache of dissatisfaction. They experience their desires as evidence of their lack, proof of everything missing from their lives. But I want to offer you a completely different way of understanding what a desire actually is. A desire is a glimpse. It is a glimpse of something that already exists, in the realm where all things exist before they appear, reaching back toward you, calling you toward it. The desire is not the ache of absence. It is the pull of a reality that is already yours, drawing you toward your own fulfillment. It is the future self, the fulfilled self, the self that already possesses the thing, reaching back through time and consciousness and come. This is real. This is where you are headed. This is who you already are. The genuine desires that live in you are not random wants generated by a dissatisfied mind. They are the shape of your own destiny pressing against the membrane of the present. They are the design of the life that is trying to express itself through you. And the very fact that the desire persists, that it returns, that it will not be silenced, that it survives every attempt to be realistic and settle for less, is the evidence that it is real, that it is meant, that it is, in the deepest sense, already accomplished, and simply awaiting your arrival. You do not desire things that are not for you. The deep desires are not temptations or torments. They are previews. They are the felt presence of a reality that already exists, calling its rightful owner home. So stop treating your desires as the measure of your lack. Start reading them as the map of your destiny. They are not telling you what you are missing. They are telling you where you are going. They are telling you who you already, at the deepest level, are. Let me speak about the gap, because this is where most people lose their nerve. There is a gap between thinking it and having it, between the conception in the inner world and the manifestation in the outer one. And in that gap, the objecting voice does its most effective work, because the gap is where the evidence lives, and the evidence for a time says no. You conceive the thing, you feel it as real, you assume it, and then you open your eyes to a world that does not yet reflect it. The circumstances are unchanged. The bank balance is the same. The relationship has not appeared. The body has not healed. and the gap between the inner conception and the outer reality stretches out before you, and it feels less like a temporary delay and more like a permanent verdict. This is the moment where most people abandon the conception. They look at the gap, they measure its width, and they conclude that the thinking was just thinking after all, that the having was never really available, that the objecting voice was right all along. But I want you to understand what the gap actually is, because it is not evidence against your conception. It is the necessary space in which conception becomes manifestation. Every seed knows a gap. The seed is planted, and for a time, sometimes a long time, there is nothing. The soil looks exactly as it did before. No green shoot, no sign, no visible evidence that anything is happening at all. And if the seed had eyes and a doubting mind, it might look at that unchanged soil and conclude that it had failed, that the growing was a fantasy, that it should give up and accept the barren ground as the final truth. But beneath the soil, in the dark, in the gap, everything is happening. The shell is splitting, the root is reaching down. The whole intelligence of the growing is at work, invisibly, in precisely the period that looks, from the surface, like nothing. The gap is not the absence of creation. The gap is where creation does its work. It is the necessary darkness in which the conceived thing assembles the means of its own becoming. And the bridge of incidents, that specific, surprising, perfectly arranged chain of circumstances that consciousness builds between the inner assumption and the outer fact, is constructing itself in exactly the period that appears to be empty. Do not measure the width of the gap and despair. Honor the gap as the workshop of your becoming. Hold your conception steady through it, and trust that what is happening beneath the surface is precisely what must happen for the thing you have thought to become the thing you have. I want to give you the practical method now, because the principle without the practice is just a beautiful idea. How do you take a thought and move it across the gap into a thing? How do you do the work of conception so that it actually crosses into manifestation? You inhabit it until it becomes natural. It is not enough to think the thought once, brightly, and then return to your ordinary state. A single thought, however vivid, is a seed dropped on the surface of the soil. It may wash away before it ever takes root. The conception must be planted deep, and it is planted deep through inhabiting, through returning to the felt reality of the thing, again and again, until it sinks below the surface of the conscious mind and takes root in the deep mind where all real creation happens. You do this not through force, but through repetition and feeling. You return to the conception the way you might return to a favorite memory, easily, warmly, without strain. You feel your way into it. You let it become familiar. You learn its textures and its details until it stops feeling like something you are imagining and starts feeling like something you are remembering. And here is the mark you are looking for. The conception has crossed from fantasy into established reality when it becomes natural, when it no longer feels like a stretch, a reach, an effortful act of imagination, but like a simple fact about your life that happens not to have appeared yet, when you would have to work to doubt it rather than working to believe it. That naturalness is the sign that the thought has taken root, that the seed is genuinely planted, that the conception has crossed from the surface of the wishing mind into the depth of the creating mind. And from that depth, it grows with the same inevitability with which any planted seed becomes what it was always going to become. Think it, feel it, inhabit it, return to it until it is natural, and the having follows the thinking as surely as the harvest follows the seed. There is something I want to say to those of you whose desires feel too big, whose thoughts reach toward things so far beyond their current circumstances that even reading these words, a part of you is saying, yes, but not for me, not from where I am, not with what I have. I want to speak to you very directly. The size of your desire is not a problem. The size of your desire is information. A large desire that you can genuinely conceive is not evidence of delusion. It is evidence of capacity. You could not genuinely conceive a thing that was not within the range of what you are capable of becoming. The reach of your authentic conception is the exact measure of your possibility. The poverty of most lives is not a poverty of circumstance, it is a poverty of conception. Most people do not fail to get what they want. They fail to genuinely want, fail to allow themselves to conceive anything large enough to be worth the getting. They have shrunk their thoughts to fit their circumstances, mistaking the smallness of their current situation for the boundary of their possibility. They have let the screen dictate the film, but you do not have to live within the boundary of your current circumstances. Your circumstances are not your ceiling, they are your starting point. And the starting point has nothing to do with the destination. The only real boundary on your life is the boundary of what you are willing and able to genuinely conceive. So conceive more, not recklessly, genuinely. Reach toward the thing that something in you recognizes as truly yours, even if it is far beyond where you currently stand. If you can genuinely conceive it, if you can inhabit it and feel something in you say yes, then it is not too big. It is exactly the right size. It is the size of who you actually are, beneath the smallness your circumstances have temporarily convinced you to accept. Do not shrink your thoughts to fit your conditions. Expand your conditions to match your thoughts. That is the direction the whole law runs, always from the inside out, always from the conception to the manifestation, always from the thought to the thing. Let me bring this home tonight. You have been taught to think of your imagination as the least serious part of you, the part that wanders when you should be focused, the part that dreams when you should be working, the frivolous, childish, impractical faculty that produces fantasies with no bearing on the real world. And it is the precise opposite of that. Your imagination is the most serious thing about you. It is the creative faculty itself, the very power by which all reality is conceived before it is built. It is not separate from your life. It is the author of your life. Every condition you currently inhabit was first imagined, and every condition you will inhabit is being imagined right now, whether you are doing it consciously or letting it happen by default. So the thoughts you think are not idle. The desires you hold are not random. The life you can genuinely conceive is not a taunt or a fantasy or a cruel reminder of what you cannot have. It is a blueprint. It is a promise. It is the design of a reality that is already yours in the only dimension where reality is first made. And it is waiting with perfect patience for you to hold it steadily enough, feel it deeply enough, and inhabit it naturally enough for the outer world to do what the outer world always does and catch up. If you can think it, you can have it. Not because thinking is magic, but because thinking is the substance of creation, and the genuine conception of a thing is the first and most essential act of bringing it into being. So think it clearly, think it boldly. Think it with the full seriousness of someone who understands that they are not idly daydreaming but actively creating. And then hold it, and feel it, and live from it, until the thing you have thought becomes the thing you have. The reach of your thought is the reach of your life. Think well, and have. Thank you for being here tonight. If this expanded something in you, if some thought you had been holding too small began to feel a little more possible, let it grow. Share it with someone who has been shrinking their dreams to fit their circumstances. Someone who needs to be reminded how much is actually available to them. Because somewhere, right now, someone is sitting on a thought big enough to change their entire life, afraid to believe it could be theirs. Maybe this is what gives them permission. Until next time, this is Best of Lectures, and we will see you in the next one.